Hello, I'm Bill Bullard with ICAF USA, the voice of the independent cattle producer in the United States of America. Well, the globalist beef packing corporations are celebrating this month. They've announced that U.S. beef exports are maintaining a remarkable pace in 2022, having exceeded $1 billion in value during 3 of the first 4 months of this year. Now, this puts the volume of beef exports up 5% compared to the same period last year. And this increased volume of beef exports resulted in a 38% increase in the value of those exports. Now, this has to be good news for America's cattle producers, right? Well, if you're a beef packer that exports beef, you realized a 38% increase in revenue so far this year. So that has to be good. But what if you're one of America's cattle producers who sell cattle to the beef packer, who then converts your cattle into beef and sells the beef from your cattle into the export market? Just how good was this for you? So according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, during the first 4 months of last year, America's cattle producers received only 39 cents of each dollar generated from the sale of beef. Now, to put this into perspective, in 2014, America's cattle producers received over 55 cents of each dollar generated from beef sales, which means the cattle producers' share of beef sales had fallen 16 cents for each dollar in sales, which further means that last year, cattle producers were not receiving their fair and competitive share from the beef sales as they once did. But with a 5% increase in export sales and a 38% increase in the value of those exports through April of this year, America's cattle producers must now be receiving their fair and competitive share from beef sales, right? Well, don't laugh, but the increased share amounts to only 0.3 cents. During the first 4 months of this year, America's cattle producers averaged only 39.3 cents for each dollar generated from the sale of beef. So how can this be? If beef demand is strong and the volume and value of beef exports has increased so significantly, why are America's cattle producers still receiving 16 cents less from each beef sale dollar than they received 8 years ago? Now, here's an answer you've heard. It's because that's just the way it is. And it's just too complicated an industry for you or me to figure it out. Now, the part about it being the way it is largely true. Recall in 2018, when beef demand had increased 15% and exports were at an all-time record level. Back then, your cattle prices fell 4% compared to what they were the year before. So that is the way it is, but that's certainly not the right answer. The right answer is that imported beef and beef products continue to outpace exported beef. So while more beef is being sold abroad, even more beef is being imported, and those imports are reducing demand for American cattle. Imports of beef are up 32% so far this year compared to the same period last year. Now, you probably heard that those imports just don't matter because they're a lower quality grinding product that we mix with higher quality trim to produce ground beef. But the fact is that you're not being told the facts. In the first quarter of 2022, only about 39%, less than half, of total beef sales and beef product imports were boneless manufacturing trimmings. The rest includes hundreds of millions of pounds of beef patties, hundreds of millions of pounds of corned beef, over 500 million pounds of beef cuts, well over 100 million pounds of primals and subprimals, tens of millions of pounds of ground beef, and tens of millions of pounds of beef jerky. Is there anyone out there who doesn't understand that these imports are reducing demand for domestic cattle and preventing America's cattle producers from receiving their competitive share from beef dollar revenues? And remember what the 4 largest beef packers recently wrote. They wrote this: after the country of origin labeling rule was repealed, foreign beef no longer had to be labeled as such. That spurred additional imports and caused domestic cattle prices to fall. You know, you can choose not to feel like a mushroom. You can choose to solve this problem by calling your 2 U.S. senators and your U.S. representative to urge them to pass mandatory country of origin labeling for beef. That's Senate Bill 2716 and House Bill 7291. Both bills will do that. But to get them passed, we need you to keep calling your congressional delegation until they do. Please join with us and go to labelourbeef.com to learn more. With that, have a productive week. Thank you and goodbye.